Greetings, YouTubians, and welcome back to Wayne's Sharp World, where today I'm bringing you guys one of my most highly anticipated ZTs in quite some time. This is none other than the ZT0762. Now, before I go any further into this review, I'd like to thank you guys for tuning in today. If you like what you see, please do me a huge favor, hit that subscribe button, follow along, and I will continue to bring you the content. I also want to let you guys know that today, this episode is brought to you by DLT Trading. Check them out for all of your knives and EDC needs. This knife will also be linked below in the description of this video for purchase from DLT. They are currently in stock and ready to ship. Now, let's take a look at some overall specs on this knife right here. We have an overall length of 8.125 inches, a blade length coming in at 3.6 inches, a cutting edge coming in at 3.75 inches, with a blade width coming in right around 1 inch, a blade thickness of 0.12 inches. This blade material is CPM 20 CV, one of the best steels you can put on a knife these days. A blade style of a modified Wharncliffe with a flat grind, a handle length coming in at 4.75 inches, a handle thickness coming in at 0.47 inches, a handle width coming in at 1 inch. This handle material is carbon fiber and titanium with a locking mechanism of the popular sub-frame lock. You see it on some ZTs. You also see it on some Kershaws, so I'm sure a lot of you guys are probably familiar with that by now. We have a user of a right or left hand tip-up carry. So there you go, lefties. This one is for you two. We have a weight coming in at 2.9 ounces. Guys, I'm going to say it right now. 2.9 ounces for this knife is absolutely stupid in the best possible way. It feels incredibly light for as big of a knife as this is. We have a price coming in at $320. So this is not a cheap knife. ZTs have never really been cheap, and with lately with the price increases and whatnot, this ZT is a little more expensive than ZTs of the past, as is a lot of knives though. So unfortunately, that's just a sign of the times. And let's take a look at some size comparisons, because this guy here, like I said, this is not a small knife, but it has the weight of a small knife, which is really nice. Really good size comparison for you right here. This is the Spyderco Spidey Chef. This is a good comparison in so many ways, you guys. I mean, look at that. Look at the curvatures and the handle, how similar that is. Very, very good comparison there. If you guys are familiar with the Spidey Chef, you probably know, I guess just like take away half the weight almost, and you have kind of how that feels in your hand. It's a extremely light knife, and I was really surprised at just how similar the handle outline of those two knives looked until I put them together. So that was kind of interesting. And then we also have the Paramilitary 2 up there, which, as you guys know, the Paramilitary 2, that handle is usually, the handle and blade all together usually makes for a pretty big knife and makes a lot of other knives look small, but not this one, not this ZT. So some really good size comparisons there. Got one more little round for you of some ZTs of past, what I call the glory years of ZT. This is another really good comparison. Not so much in length, because this is a longer knife, but again, the handle curvature, kind of even the blade, I don't want to say shape, but, well, we'll talk about it in just a second. ZT0850 as well. Now, if anyone knows the 0850, that's a big knife. Really, these are both big knives, so kind of helps put this into comparison of just the actual size of it. But look at this 0055 to the 0762. Again, very, very good idea of how it's going to feel in your hand. If you guys like how this feels in your hand, I guarantee you're going to love how this feels in your hand, because the ergos on this guy are much better than the 0055, and I kind of like the way the 055 sits in my hand. So a lot of good things ergonomically going into this handle. A few little issues that we'll talk about here right about now, after we get done talking about this blade, because this blade right here is one very sick modified Wharncliffe. A very versatile tip that is not too dainty, so it's good to put some nice, probably pretty heavy use on. I mean, it's CPM 20 CV. You know it's a steel that's going to hold up, give you some fantastic edge retention. The one thing that I would like to change about this blade is the thickness behind the edge. I had readings coming in at 24 to 25 thousandths. Not exactly anything to write home about, but even the best ZTs never really had a super thin edge. So not really the end of the world. Still a fantastic cutter. Going to take care of course, all your EDC tasks just fine. But I would like to see a reading coming in around, that 17 to 18 thousandths is a really good number, especially nowadays with so many knives coming in with nice thin edges. You got a great steel to put that thin edge on. Really wish they would have taken advantage of that. But regardless, I do still really like this blade. Very, very effective. I also love the satin grind and the stone-washed flats. That's always been a detail that I really, really like in any knife, really. I don't necessarily always love the black flats. Sometimes you see that. ZT's done that in the past, actually on the 0850 that you just saw, which still looks nice, but I like the stonewash because it gives it more of just a subtle little detail. You see it, but it doesn't stand out too strong. Really like that. I like that on pretty much any knife, and of course I love it on this knife. The jimping on the spine here is really in the perfect spot, and this also kind of ties into the ergos, which we'll hit a little more about when we get to the handle portion, but it makes your hand put your thumb right here, and I like that. It not super forceful, not to where they have finger grooves and stuff, but it's just a very natural, good feeling right here, and that jimping is right where it needs to be. Just fantastic positioning. Really, really like it, and the jimping is not too aggressive, but definitely effective to the point to where your thumb definitely knows it's there, you feel it, and it works. So really, really good design there in terms of adding a little extra grip to the handle. As for this blade, we have pretty darn great centering. It's maybe favoring the show side just a little, but again, even I am okay with that. No real issue there whatsoever. And of course, you wouldn't expect any with the ZT, but zero blade play. So a very solid blade all around. And going into the handle and ergos, the ergos are actually really, really good as far as the curvatures of the handle. Like I was just saying, when you put this in your hand, you don't feel any hot spots from the handle whatsoever. It's very, very smooth. That point down there is nowhere close to your hand or palm, so you're not feeling that. And it sits in your two front fingers. There's kind of one little part right here where your two front fingers are going to sit, and then your back two fingers sit towards the end of the handle, of course, and it just falls in your hand, and it really does feel great. When it comes to, curvatures and how it just feels in your hand immediately, this is one of the better ZTs I think I've ever felt, to be totally honest. I really do like the ergos on this handle. The one thing that I don't exactly love on the handles is the cutouts here, and it's not for any aesthetic reasons. It's for the lack of, when you put your hand on the handle, you don't feel a lot in the middle. Like my index finger, it's not feeling much because there's the cutout there. So it's not pressing down against something. I don't feel like I'm losing grip. I'm just not used to feeling that on a knife handle. Usually it's a full flat or, contoured handle, and you got some feeling on your index finger. And that the same goes for my middle finger and ring finger, but not quite as much as it does my index. The index is the one that really bothers me, but at the same time, I think this is something I'll get used to. I don't think it's something that's going to give me a lot of fits. You actually get a little extra grip with this one down here because it's not too big. The one up here is just a little bigger, so it kind of feels, I don't want to say bad, it just feels different in the hand, something you want to get used to. But aesthetically, I think the cutouts look really good. I usually don't love a lot of blue on my knife, but this is a nice, subtle blue. It's not vibrant. It doesn't pop. So the way they mixed kind of the cutout area with some, I believe this is titanium. It's titanium. It said titanium, so I'm assuming that all this is titanium on the knife. The anodization is good. It doesn't pop too much, and they mixed it with kind of the raw, silverish looking titanium. It's a nice little contrast there. It works really well with the carbon fiber. So aesthetically, it looks good. You may have to take some compressed air to it every once in a while because you're going to be carrying this in your pocket a lot. So, you know, you get some dust and pocket lint and crud in there, so you got to blow that out, keep it clean. But in my opinion, you should be doing that with your knives anyway, especially around the pivot, to blow some lube in there and whatnot to keep your knife in tip-top functioning order. But regardless, really do like what they did here with this handle ergonomically. The only little issue I have with the ergos is the pocket clip. You know, even when ZT was coming out with some of the sweetest knives on the market, they still were failing pretty miserably in the pocket clip department. And I will say this one, based off my experience with previous ZT pocket clips, this one is actually a little step up. There's been some ZT pocket clips in the past, like I said, they're horrendous. This one, it doesn't carry super deep, but I will say it rides really well in the pocket. You're going to have a lot of the knife exposed. I mean, you're going to have probably like that much sticking up. But I don't, like I've said before in previous videos, I used to be all deep carry all the way. Now I'm getting to the point to where I don't so much mind it. It's not a deal breaker for me. This one is pretty high. It's higher than I would want to carry just about any knife. Any higher and I would be probably not too happy with it. But this does allow you a really good area right here to grab and pull the knife out of your pocket, and it works really well. You get a little traction from the screws that aren't recessed, but you know what? The black and blue and carbon fiber, it doesn't look horrible. It doesn't look cheap or cheesy. It looks a little more, you know, what's the best way to put it? It's not so much of an eyesore. It's not the first thing you see when you look at it. You know, you see the carbon fiber, probably maybe catching a little light. You see a lot of things. You don't just see unrecessed screws. So no real issue there. Like I said, you can pull out of the pocket fine. Goes into my pocket just fine. And I will say, for as high as this rides in the pocket, there's still a lot of knife. Close this up. There's still a lot of knife that's going to be in your pocket. Basically, this much knife right here is going to be in your pocket. And I gotta say, this carries very, very well, considering how much knife is in your pocket. Doesn't hog up your entire pocket. It's sitting there so it kind of curves off to the side. So you do have a little pocket, you know, if you carry change or a vape or anything relatively small in your pocket, you could put it in with this knife and I don't think you'd have much of an issue. So it does carry very well, especially with it being so super light. Just feels absolutely great in the pocket. And when it comes to the pocket clip, there is one little minor issue. The ramp up here, while you have enough ramp to get over your pocket hem, it can be a bit of a hot spot for some people. Now for me, like I said, I feel it. It doesn't quite bother my hand, but I can tell this would probably bother some people, of course, depending on the shape of your hand, what kind of condition your hand is, whether it's calloused like really bad like mine, or if you have, softer skin, it could bother you, but it's not the end of the world for me. I wish ZT would just experiment, take a look at some deep carry clips. They've had one in the past on their 0562CF, and it worked really, really good. I wish they'd do that more often. But and I think this one could even, have, if they looked into it, they could find a way to make this a deep carry clip. So something I would like to see from them in the future, especially when you're spending $350 on a knife. Maybe recess this clip and put a little insert on this side or something. I don't know, just thinking out loud. But regardless, an okay clip. An okay clip, carries well, goes in the pocket well, but it does have a small hot spot there. As far as the carbon fiber, ZT has always had this. This is nothing new, but this carbon fiber is absolutely pristine. Some of the nicest carbon fiber you can ever get on a knife you'll get from ZTs, and that's always been the case. They've never had bad carbon fiber, but this one especially, you see, a lot of detail in the side. They did so much milling on this carbon fiber, and it's still flawless. I mean, it's absolutely flawless. There is no blemish whatsoever. It's what you should expect on a $320 knife. I mean, let's be real here, but it's still worth pointing out because it looks so darn good. Just a really, really big fan of that. I'm really a huge fan of the aesthetics of this knife in general. I love what ZT did here with this. The moment I saw this, I thought, okay, you know what? Maybe they're back on track. Maybe they're doing something right here. The overall aesthetics are just fantastic. The blade to handle ratio does not get any better than this, guys. I mean, look at this. It is absolutely spot on. I wish I could get this type of blade to handle ratio on every knife because it's perfect. And they got as much of the blade as they possibly could. It's just a very on point design. So I haven't seen that in quite a while from ZT, and it really is a pleasure to see that. Now, going into the action, the action is what's going to make or break this for a lot of people. Some people are going to be okay with it and like it. Some people are just not going to like it and kind of be done with it. A lot of it ties into the TDS system, which we'll talk about in just a second. Most importantly, though, the deployment of the blade. That's going to be I think the main point for a lot of people when it comes to action. That's good. That's really good. I actually like the sound it makes too. You get kind of a tink and a thwack. I like it. Like it a lot. You also don't have to light switch it. You can light switch it and it comes out just fine. But you guys know me, I like to push button, and I can push button it just fine. And even though the flipper tab is a little pointy back here, it doesn't bother my finger. They did a really good job of rounding the edges, or at least, kind of not necessarily even crowning them, but just kind of knocking down the corners that would be pointy, rounding it off everywhere, and it just feels pretty good to me. I mean, if you do it 50 times in a row, yeah, it might wear on your index finger a little, but I'm not doing that. I don't plan on doing that. But very, very good on deployment in my opinion. Now, when it comes to closing it, that is where it gets a little different. Because what you have here with the TDS system, if you guys don't know what the TDS system is about, what it is, it's relatively new to ZT. I believe they do have this patented, so you can only get it on ZT knives. That may be a good or bad thing, depending on how you like it. But what it is there is a second detent ball in this knife. So there's two detent balls, one on this side, one on this side. And what it's made to do is if I have my thumb, or any finger, not my thumb, I'm not going to have my thumb unless I'm a lefty, which I'm not. I have my hand, or my finger, on this subframe lock here, and I'm putting good pressure on it. So in the past with knives, if you're putting a lot of pressure on the lock bar, you're going to really struggle to pop the blade out. It usually just won't come out at all. So right here, you guys see the whiteness on my finger. I'm pressing really hard on it. That was a horrible example. Okay, there. Do it again. Got pressure, see the pressure, still pops out. And that's with me purposely putting pressure on it. No one's ever going to purposely put pressure on it. But if you're not paying attention, you got a little pressure, still pops out, no problem. Action's still good on deployment. So that's not going to slow you down. So that's a good thing. Where it can give you an issue is when you go to close it. So when you go to close it, the blade is going to have to pass two detent balls on each side, or one detent ball on each side, totaling two detent balls. So you go to open the lock, you have to give it a little tap to knock it down, and then it shakes shut. Now that one looked a little awkward. Let me just kind of do it here. There. So you get used to it. It's not something that's going to really, it doesn't necessarily make it harder, in my opinion, but it's another step. It's a little extra. It's one harder initial shake you have to give it to close it. So I got it open the subframe lock, shake it, I broke the detent, and close it. So again, you get used to it. You get used to it. It's not ideal. I can't say I love it, but it is what it is. That's the one real drawback of the TDS system. Now, again, once you break that second detent, or both the detent balls, it shakes shut pretty easily, like a lot of other knives do. So it's very average, very normal in that comparison. And as you can see, you can get to be pretty easy at it to where it's not that big of a deal. So when it comes to that, that's going to be it's going to be a very personal decision from buyer to buyer. Some people are going to like it, some people are going to hate it. To me, I'm very much in the middle. If I had to pick TDS system or no TDS system, I would go no TDS system. It's not something I love, but, you know, it is what it is, guys. It's there. So you have to address that monkey in the room, but I don't think it makes this knife much less desirable for me. The ultimate question I ask myself when it comes to something like a TDS system or a feature on a knife is, even with that feature, with that added benefit, they like to call it, would I still buy the knife, whether I like it or dislike it? Even with the TDS system, I would still highly, strongly consider buying this knife. And it is still a knife I would recommend. My overall thoughts on this knife, and I'll go back to the question of whether or not this looks like a ZT. This does. It finally, I have a knife in my hand that, this knife looks like it came out right after the 0640, which was, I believe, the last knife ZT came out with that I actually really liked and wanted and ended up buying, which was, I think, 2.5 years ago now, maybe even 3 years ago. It was quite a while ago. I'd have to go back and look at the release date, but it's been a long time since I've seen a ZT that I really wanted. And guys, this is it. This is it. I really do like the ZT a whole lot. This is completely different from the 308 and there's 7 something that came out recently, that was, or last year, I think, that was real slim and slender, more of like a gentleman's carry, whatnot. They tried to pass it off as that. This is a ZT. It's, it fills the hand. It's a nice size knife. It has a very, attractive, different design. It's everything that you want to see in ZTs. I hope they continue this trend. It's positive. It's uplifting. We'll see where it goes from here. But as for this guy right here, the ZT0762, it is one I would recommend. I would also recommend, though, trying to get one in hand or seeing one somewhere to see exactly what I'm talking about with the TDS system, because that's really hard for me to totally explain over a video to you guys. Like I said, it's not the end of the world, but you do have to get used to it. If you get used to it, you're going to love this knife. I really think a lot of people, if not everyone, would really like this knife if they could just get used to the TDS system. It's going to be the real big thing for everyone to grasp. But that's it, guys. It's a good one in my opinion, the ZT0762. Let me know what you think of this one. I always love seeing your guys' comments in the descriptions below. Let me know. I hope you enjoyed this one. I hope you have a great rest of your day. And until the next one, I'm out.